Yeah, Run It Back Philly is in the building. Let's go. This is not an intro.
I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
Sixers are back, boy.
Yeah. Let's get right down to business. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are 100% back. This, what you're witnessing right now in front of your two eyes, is a brand new 76ers fan. Just about 72 hours ago, I was no longer a 76ers fan. I was done. It was over. I didn't believe anymore. And, you know, sadly enough, it doesn't take a whole lot. Doesn't take a whole lot to get Eastwood back to believing and inevitably getting stabbed in the heart one more time. Round number 36 for me personally of being stabbed in the heart by the Philadelphia 76ers every season. You know, the process is hanging on by a thread. And the Philadelphia 76ers ownership group pulled out one last trick. The final card up their sleeve. The final hit on the blackjack table. You know, they got a 19, dealers showing 20. They got to hit one more time. The odds of winning that hand are literally 0.00001%. But they're hitting one more time. And this is the final straw of the process. If this doesn't work, it's over. But they got us for one last go-round. They got us for one final ride. And I have no choice but to be here. I have no choice but to get on the only rescue boat that's left. The ship is sinking. The process is the Titanic. It's on its way down. The freaking ass end of the boat is the only thing left out of the water. We're standing on the tip of the boat. There's one rescue boat left. It's Nick Nurse. We have no choice but to get on it. Yeah, anyway. Thanks for being here. This is Run It Back Philly. You know the drill. No frauds, no fanboys, no intros. That was not an intro. That was a figment of your imagination. Martin Santiago, thank you for supporting the channel as always. Everybody in here, 171 people right now. For DJ Eastwood being a believer once again. For me putting myself out there. For me standing in front of the inevitable 76ers firing range. Do me a favor and hit the like button. Close out the chat. Hit the like button. Come right back on in. I got some things I want to say. Before I do that, 5 takes in the chat. 5 of your opinions on the Nick Nurse hiring right now. 5 of your opinions on the Philadelphia 76ers and the Nick Nurse hiring right now. Where are we at? I need something good, man. What's up with the chat? I need something good. Come on, bro. Give me the heat, man. Give me the heat. Gat need more than a nurse to save the Sixers. That is absolutely true. That is 100% true. Hiring Nick Nurse does not fix the issues. Hiring Nick Nurse got a major problem out of the way. We don't know yet what, some of these players on this roster would have looked like under a coach that wanted to use people, wanted to use players, wanted to get creative. We don't know, but we know for certain that Doc Rivers was not going to change anything, was not going to adapt to anything, was not going to try anything outside of what he's done for 21 straight years, which resulted in all of the largest chokes in NBA history outside of a 2008 championship that was on the backs of 4 Hall of Famers that you, me, a chimpanzee, or my son sitting on the bench playing his Nintendo Switch could have coached to a championship. Doc Rivers is out of the way. Now we can step forward and work on a couple of more things. So I agree with you. We do need more. Soldier of Romero, L for Philly. D'Antoni was the man to bring the title to Philly. My dude has a James Harden profile picture. Oh, this is a major L for Philly, man. I wanted my overrated coach from Houston to coach my overrated superstar from Houston so that... True tactive. Nick Nurse being here may put an end to a PJ Tucker Tobias front court hopeful. I think that's 100% the case. And we're going to look at, probably the second half of this stream here. We are going to look at Nick Nurse's rosters from 2018 up until his firing and some of their rankings and where they were in the NBA because there's a lot of things there. But yeah, I think that just by looking at Nick Nurse's history, he values a couple of things in the NBA, and playing PJ Tucker and Tobias Harris on the floor at the same time, or bringing George Niang off the bench as the 6th man, or playing Montrezl Harrell for 3 months when he couldn't guard anybody, couldn't grab a rebound. Those things are not going to happen. That's what I need people to understand. There's people being negative, and I'm gonna touch on the negative comments and give my thoughts on it. But Let's get three more. Phil W. Nurse fired with solid team. Now get him. Doc fired. He about to get job. Seems like everyone rotates. Sam Cassell and Mark Jackson was needed. I've no idea what that means. Here we go. Nick Nurse actually has the balls to move Tobias to the bench. 100% below. 100% on the money. Taz Journey, I'm not buying in until we're out of the second round. I agree with that, but what are we supposed to do? Not talk about anything until, the Sixers win in the playoffs next year? I got a lot of things to say, man. But I agree with I'm not buying into the Sixers are a championship level team, I'm not buying into that either. There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of issues. Roster-wise, management-wise, philosophy-wise, culture-wise, there's a lot of issues. So I agree. I agree with you there. Gustavo, Doc Rivers is doing it again. What does that mean? What does that mean? Doc's getting hired? Where's he getting hired, bro? Did I miss this? Or do I care? Matt L. Also, now we can see Nurse's offensive chops. He only had one good offensive roster in his 5 seasons there. Boom, Matt! Matt's on the money as he usually is. There's people saying that Nick Nurse, there's people who didn't even Google his name. There's people who didn't even take the 5 minutes to Google his name and read maybe the first paragraph on Wikipedia saying Nick Nurse is not an offensive-minded coach, does not have offensive creativity. We're going to get into all that, okay? We're going to get into all that. Listen, hit the like button. Thanks for being here, okay? Let's start with this. Hold on a second. I need a producer. Let's start with a couple nuggets, okay, before we get into the business. The Celtics blow a 3-0. Well, they won 3 games in a row. They take it to a game 7, and they inevitably get blown out on their home floor. And I thought this was interesting from Charles Barkley. The Celtics, he said they played bad basketball. They're so undisciplined and unfundamentally sound. They win games strictly on talent. I felt that exact same way about the 76ers, and I was saying that about the Celtics in that series. They won games because Tatum was good, because Jaylen Brown's good, because Marcus Smart, Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, etc. But when you really watch that Celtics team, it didn't look cohesive. It didn't look like a well-oiled machine. It just looked like random basketball. Tatum's turn, Brown's turn. And that's why I thought the Sixers had a chance to beat them. I, in turn, am glad that they did not, because that resulted in finally Doc Rivers getting up out of here. If the Sixers would have here's the thing. The Celtics have a lot of issues. If they would have collapsed and the Sixers would have won, Doc Rivers would still be here because he would have the excuse that he got us past the second round. You know what I mean? We needed the Sixers to lose that series, and the Celtics almost blew it. But anyway, Miami wins. They go to the NBA Finals for the second time in the Jimmy Butler era after leaving Philly. It is what it is. Okay. Sixers hire Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse, who won an NBA championship and a Coach of the Year award in Toronto, now gets to coach the 2023 MVP, Joel Embiid. And I think I put this right here. This is why, I thought this was interesting, man. Nick Nurse chose the 76ers over the Suns, according to Woj. Nurse's desire to coach MVP Joel Embiid and his history with the Sixers president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, played a significant part in his decision to commit to a deal with Philadelphia. I'm interested in that, And Joel Embiid and Nick Nurse had the little spat on the sideline thing, during the playoffs. And Joel told him to stop bitching about calls, and that's just competitive nature. People are acting like they hate each other. People are like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I wonder what Joel Embiid thinks of this. Like, Joel hates the guy. Like, it's just ridiculous, the how blown out of proportion people take a 2-second interaction in the middle of competition. But I like the fact that Nick Nurse chose Philly because of Joel Embiid. And if I had to guess what's going through his mind, I think it is that Nick Nurse probably watched the Sixers offense and probably thinks that he can get a lot more out of this offense than the coaches that were here were getting out of this offense. I really think that's probably where he's at with it. You know, he probably looked at this and said, wow, they have a nucleus. They have a physically dominant scoring center at their disposal who you can use to suck in the defense, pause, and make teams retreat to the three-point line. You know, Nick Nurse, he's had one top 25 in three-point attempts per game team in his tenure, and I'm going to go over that in a minute. He preaches. One of the main things he does is run and shoot threes. The one thing that Doc Rivers, for whatever reason, didn't do. The one thing that Brett Brown, for whatever reason, with the roster that he had back then, the Al Horford, Embiid, Tobias, Ben Simmons, just terrible roster. No shooters, no spacing. You know, they weren't focused on the one thing, man. The one thing. 8 years of the process. Joel Embiid's in his 6 seasons. And there was nobody in charge that just did the obvious, bro. The obvious. This team, with a player like Joel Embiid commanding the paint, should probably lead the NBA in three-pointers attempted. That should be number 1, bro. Give the ball to the big guy, make the defense collapse, and shoot some damn three-pointers. It's 6 years. 6 years, a guy in charge couldn't come up with that brilliant idea to shoot a bunch of wide open threes because Joel Embiid commands the paint. Nick Nurse had his team up there every season in three-pointers attempted without a guy like Joel Embiid commanding the paint. He probably looked at this like, this is going to be a cakewalk to get these three-pointers off. I get to coach a guy like this. I'm already good at getting a bunch of wide open threes off. Now I get a guy like Joel Embiid to use. I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you. I think that's the main reason he took this job, because he sat back and looked at this roster and said, how in the hell do they have Joel Embiid and they are 17th in the league in three-pointers attempted? That doesn't even make any sense. And that's the main thing I like about this guy. It's the modern NBA. It's the modern NBA. You flat out have to shoot three-pointers. We had a game against the Boston Celtics where they shot 51. And the Sixers shot 27. I don't care how much talent you have. I don't care what the philosophy is. I don't care what it is. You're not winning a game in today's NBA when one team's shooting 51 threes and you're shooting 27. That's simple math. 3 is more than 2. You know, whether you go the Greg Popovich route and hate the new NBA, it doesn't matter what you think of it. That's just what it is. You have to shoot threes. Now listen, 370 in here. Hit the like button. Nick Nurse is a winner. I want you to understand that from a very simple perspective. He is a winner. Not just in the NBA. Nick Nurse has 2 championships in the BBL, the British Basketball League, and people look at that like, you know, people will look at foreign leagues and think that doesn't matter because it's a league with less talent. Like when you look at, okay, this player did this in the Euro League, and you can say, okay, but will he be great in the NBA? You know, we don't know if his talent will transfer from dominating guys of that caliber to this caliber. But when a coach was in a foreign league and he won 2 championships in the BBL with 2 different teams. Then he came over here, he won a championship in the G League. Then he got promoted in Toronto and he won a championship on the main level. So he's coached different talent, different levels of talent, different style of basketball, the British Basketball League. He won championships over there. He came over here and won in the G League. He came up to the NBA and won in the NBA, which tells me he's adaptive. People are trying to sell me this Nick Nurse is another Doc Rivers. I already saw it in the chat when I first hit live. Doc Rivers, it's Doc Rivers 2.0. Bro, you got to do a little bit of research. Somebody that won multiple championships in 4 different leagues, I would like to think that's an adaptive coach. That's a coach who looks at talent individually, looks at a whole team's construction, and says, how can I do the best thing possible with what I have in front of me right now? Not, I have a philosophy that I'm going to live by. And if everybody on the roster doesn't match up with that, we're just going to run it straight into the ground until it explodes. That's what Doc Rivers was. This guy has 2 championships in the British League, a championship in the G League and a championship in the NBA. That tells me he's adaptive. And now this. Where's my video at? This John Clark posted, and I like this, and I want you to hear it. Make sure the sound is on. Yeah, listen to this.
You've got to instill that you're playing to win the game, right? I know that sounds really simple, but that is how we're judged. That's why they keep score. You know, all those simple little things. And right under that, though, I always say 1A is, can we increase each player's value in the marketplace?
This is exactly what I'm saying. What are the odds a guy like this who has multiple championships in multiple different leagues comes out and says you have to coach winning? It seems to me like Nick Nurse knows how to win, and then he says we want to. What did he say? Hold on.
Can we increase each player's value in the marketplace?
Can we increase each player's value in the marketplace? Which means he's sitting down, he's taking the time to look at the whole roster, and he's saying, how can I use this player the best and get the most out of this player? Jalen McDaniels, a Jaden Springer, could have been a Matisse Thybulle, could have been Isaiah Joe, could be DeAnthony Melton, could be Tyrese Maxey, who I feel like developed himself to this point. Where's he going to go next? You know?
And we spend a lot of time trying to get them better, you know?
Yeah. We just went from a guy that was like, this is how it is, and I need players that fit this mold, and if they don't, I don't know what to do, and I'm just going to let them rot on the bench, to a guy who's going to actually look at each individual player and try to get the most out of them. I like how that sounds.
And what's getting them better? Well, we got to develop them. We got to work with them. We got to do the shooting. We're not afraid to tinker with their shot right when they get here. We're not afraid to put in the time. We're not this and that, but we're also not afraid to, what we do is teach them that winning, you know, we got to coach winning.
Yeah, we got to coach winning. Now look at this. That's one thing Nick Nurse is going to bring to me, is a winning attitude, a winning culture, a winning mentality. And again, you won on multiple levels in multiple different leagues. It tells me that he's adaptive and he takes what's in front of him and figures out a way to get the most out of them. Of the top 25 teams in NBA history in three-pointers attempted per game, because I say number 2, what he's going to bring to the second thing he's going to bring to this team is flat out shooting more three-pointers. Flat out shooting more threes to survive in the modern NBA, the three-point era. You just flat out have to shoot threes. You have to. Of the top 25 teams in NBA history in three-point attempts per game, Mike D'Antoni was a head coach of 4 of them and an assistant on 1. Maybe he ran that a little bit too far. trading Clint Capella and playing Robert Covington at center down in Houston and just trying to shoot as many threes per game as possible. Maybe he took it too far, you know? Maybe you got to find a little bit of a balance, right? Budenholzer was the coach of 4 of them. Hey, look, he has a championship. He said, put Giannis in the middle. Give me guys on the perimeter that can dribble and shoot, and I'll go make it happen. And Nick Nurse was the head coach of one of them without a player like that in the paint. So what can Nick Nurse do with Joel Embiid in the paint? I'm excited. The highest Glenn Rivers coach team was 82nd. So there's that. Nick Nurse is going to flat out 100% shoot more threes. Now look at this. Nick Nurse, coaching career. Where are we at here? I want to see when he came up to the NBA. In July 2013, Nick Nurse departed the Vipers for an assistant job on the coaching staff of the Toronto Raptors. He was in charge of the offense during his time under Casey. And in the 17-18 season, he was credited for the changes to the Raptors' offensive game plan, which included increases in passing and three-point attempts. Now, come on, all the people telling me this is Doc Rivers 2.0 and he has no offensive philosophy. He was in charge of the offense during his time under Casey, and in the 2017-18 season, he was credited for the changes to the Raptors' offensive game plan, which increased passing and three-point attempts. The improved offense helped the Raptors win a franchise record 59 games, but the team was swept in the second round by the Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, what can you do? And Casey was fired shortly thereafter. On June 2018, the Raptors promoted Nurse to the position of head coach. In his first season, he guided the Raptors to a 58-24 record. Of course, he had Kawhi Leonard. So here's where we go with this, you know? There's this balance. Is it the coach? Is it the roster? Right? Every coach needs every championship coach needs a championship level roster to get it done. Where's my thing? I got to zoom out a little bit here. Where's the years at, bro? Listen, let's go here. Because I want to show you guys. I want to break it down by roster because the main thing people are saying is that, you know, he didn't get it done with the Toronto Raptors after Kawhi Leonard left. And that's easy for anybody to say, right? Let me get this whole webpage up here, bro. What's going on here? Fit to screen. Yeah. All right. I still don't have the years on here, bro. What's going on here? Oh, okay, there it is. All right, look. So the 2017-18 team, okay, Toronto Raptors. Nick Nurse was the assistant coach who was in charge of the offense. They had the second highest offensive rating in the entire NBA. And, that was without Kawhi Leonard. And if you look at the team ranks here, look. They were third in field goals made. They were sixth in field goals attempted. They were seventh in field goal percentage. They were fourth in three-pointers made. They were third in three-pointers attempted. It just tells me flat out Nick Nurse offensively is focused on running and shooting, being a fast-paced team that gets off three-point attempts. 18-19, when he won the championship with Kawhi Leonard, they were fifth. So, and field goals attempted, they were 16th, which tells you, hey, look, you had Kawhi. You're going to run a little bit more ISO. You're going to run a little bit more one-on-one, half-court offense. Game's going to slow down a little bit. Still had them fifth in the league in offensive rating and won a championship. 19-20. Soon as Kawhi leaves, Kyle Lowry leaves, etc. Well, Kyle Lowry was still there in 20. They went to 14th. Kyle Lowry leaves, and they go back to 16th. And my point here is Everybody wants to say when a coach doesn't get it done, but there's just a balance, bro. Like, every coach needs a championship roster. Was this a championship roster? DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, Serge Ibaka, Jonas Valanciunas, DeLon Wright, Pascal Siakam, rookie Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet coming off the bench. It was a decent roster, right? The championship roster. Look at this roster. Kyle Lowry in his prime. Kawhi Leonard in his prime. Second year, Pascal Siakam. Was it second year or third year? I don't remember. Either way, Pascal Siakam has the number 3. They had Danny Green out here still launching threes at 45.5%. Fred VanVleet coming off the bench shooting to 38% from 3. Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka. This was a championship roster. And Nick Nurse took that championship level roster and went and won a championship with it. The easiest way to say this is that what did we have before this? A coach who had multiple stacked rosters. Boston in 2009. He should have had more than one championship with that Boston team. The Clippers team should have had a championship with that team. The Sixers team, should he have had a championship? I don't know. But it seems like Doc Rivers has had many chances, many championship level rosters, and choked and choked and choked and choked and choked. Nick Nurse had one championship level roster and went and won a championship. Kawhi Leonard leaves the next year, 1920. Let's look at it. Is this a championship level roster? No. Kyle Lowry on the last year of his tenure in Toronto, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, OG. No, you don't have that superstar. He only had that superstar one time. You know? And then, of course, Lowry leaves. Gasol, what? Where did he go? Or did he just retire? And then you look at this team. I mean, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry was still there. He got traded at the deadline that year. But not a championship level roster. 21-22, Pascal VanVleet, Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent Jr. I mean, this is a play-in team with probably any coach in history. Maybe Eric Spoelstra gets more out of this team. But I just think realistically, when you look at it, Nick Nurse had one championship level roster and he went and won a championship. And you just can't really look at, things like this when you're looking at a roster led by Siakam and VanVleet. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. You can look at them defensively, though. Look, field goals made, field goals attempted, first in the NBA at opponent field goal attempts. So, that's where I'm at with it. Let's get back here. Couple other things, man. Where are you guys at? Where's the chat? What are you guys talking about? Give me your opinions, man. Nick produced a chip the 1 year he had an elite star player. I completely agree. Phil W., how is Nurse a better coach? I mean, I just spent 40 minutes explaining to you how he's a better coach. What, you could agree with that or disagree with that. But I mean, you're going to ask me how he's a better coach after I just answered that? Come on, bro. Raptors were a pretty damn competitive team after Kawhi left, pushed Boston to 7 in the second round. Boom. Those are just the two things I wanted to throw out there about Nick Nurse and, kind of what I expect from him taking over this Sixers team. I think they're going to run. I think he's going to practice. He's going to preach a philosophy of getting up and down the floor, moving the ball, and shooting open threes. And I think he's going to get more out of Joel Embiid than you've seen under Doc Rivers or Brett Brown. And I think he's going to put players on the floor that match that. You know what I mean? Look, if Tobias is not the catch and shoot guy that you need out there, he's not going to be out there. You know? If PJ Tucker's washed, just because Daryl gave him a 3-year contract, it doesn't mean he has to be out there. Guy was out there for 30-plus minutes putting up goose eggs, pump faking in the corner. Now you have a coach who his whole career has focused on moving the ball and shooting open threes. I don't think PJ Tucker's going to get away with pump faking wide open shots in the corner. I think this is what we were looking for. I do. I think this is what we were looking for. Flowery DeRoses, y'all are the same team as last year at the moment. Yeah, no shit. Free agency starts July 6th, bro. What were we supposed to do? What were we supposed to do 6 days after losing Game 7, huh? How can you... Hey, guys, a month before free agency starts, you guys are the same team you were last year. Man, y'all are on one today, bro. You guys are on one today. All right, but look, there's a main, question that this all raises, and that is what happens with James Harden. What happens with James Harden? You know, James Harden gets tired of Houston and leaves, forces his way out, comes back looking like Brick Ross, gained 40 pounds in the offseason, did something nobody's ever seen an NBA player do, which is legitimately get fat on purpose. And force his way out. Goes to Brooklyn, tries to get back in shape, whatever. Forces his way out of there. Comes to Philly, opts out, and basically says that he didn't want to play under Doc Rivers and he wants the freedom to play his style of basketball. Oh, what's that, James? A 5-out so you can dribble 20 seconds off the shot clock and force up a shot? When you were 27 years old, that worked when you still had the lift and the athleticism. Now you're trying to do that same thing, except you look like you're running in quicksand. So your style of basketball, it's kind of gone because you don't have it anymore, because you don't take care of your body, because you party and eat chicken wings. It is what it is. I'm just here to spit facts. I'm sorry if you don't want to hear that. But, you know, does James say, Dan, Nick Nurse, do I want to play under this guy? You know, and I think James Harden wanted Mike D'Antoni. And I think there might have been some roundtable discussions with ownership, Daryl Morey, and there might have been some disagreements. You know, they probably don't want to give James Harden a max contract after what he looked like, because they're looking at, you know, years and years into the future. I'm not saying this ownership group has any idea what they're doing, but maybe they've learned a little bit from their mistakes in the past, and they're reluctant to give a player a max contract who looks like he's on the second half of his career. And maybe Harden wanted D'Antoni, and maybe they said, nah, bro, we're hiring the coach that we think is the best, and we want you to do the most with it that you can do. Now, if James Harden was sitting there and said, I want D'Antoni so I can run my Houston style of basketball, even though I'm completely washed and can't jump anymore, and they went and hired Nick Nurse, you know, it was already out there that James Harden going back to Houston is a guarantee or set in stone. Some NBA GMs believe that it's set in stone that he's going back to Houston. Maybe the hiring of Nick Nurse was all James Harden needed to say, all right, I probably wasn't coming back anyway, but now I'm really getting up out of here, you know? And it's just interesting because Nick Nurse is a hard-headed, ego-driven guy. James Harden is an ego-driven guy. And I don't know if those two guys would work together in the first place, you know? And if James leaves, yeah, Nick Nurse isn't the answer to a championship. You know, the Sixers still need some certain things, but when you really look at some of the young athletic guys that they've had and some of the guys that showed flashes, Jalen McDaniels, Paul Reed, you know, DeAnthony Melton, Daniel House Jr. is not young, but still has that two-way athleticism, still has that end-to-end game that you saw a spark of in the playoffs, and then when it mattered the most, Doc completely stopped playing him again, which we'll never understand. But when you look at all of that, and you look at Tyrese Maxey in year 4, you might be able to see, you might be looking at it like, wow, you know, maybe Nick Nurse can take a Joel Embiid offense and put the right players around him, ball-handling shooters, and be top 2 or 3 in the league in three-pointers attempted, and balance having a decent pace while also running a half-court game with Joel. And I just think, I'm not saying it's a championship, but I'm saying it's a lot better of an outlook than it was under Doc Rivers. That's why I have hope, because I knew nothing was going to be different if they brought Doc back. And now I at least have a reason to believe somebody might get the best out of a Joel Embiid-led offense. Is Joel Embiid a number 1 scoring option? I don't know. The regular season looks so much different than the postseason. In the postseason, you don't get the calls. You don't have the spacing. Teams throw the kitchen sink at him, and, you know, it is what it is. If Daryl Morey can do some kind of magic, maybe they bring in somebody else, or maybe they just try their best with year 4 Tyrese Maxey on the perimeter, man. B-Lo, what up, man? Jaden Springer about to be Nick Nurse's favorite player. That man's defense pro ready. The rest of his skills are pretty raw, but it will be a lockdown guard on my own. You know what? I don't even think the rest of his skills are raw. We watched this kid drop 40-plus points in the G League Finals to get his team to the championship, and then he won G League MVP. And he was shooting threes. This is an NBA floor. I mean, yeah, the defensive competition isn't the same as the NBA, obviously, but he's got a three-point shot. He's got a mid-range shot. He can get all the way to the rim. And if you look at somebody like Scotty Barnes or somebody like OG Anunoby, or OG's a big dude. Obviously, he's not a good comparison for Jaden Springer, but those are guys that Doc Rivers would have had on the end of the bench. Doc would have said, I can't play Scotty Barnes. You got to give me some 38-year-olds out here. I need guys that look like they're at the YMCA. You know? So I think you're right to think that Nick Nurse is going to look at younger athletic players and get the most out of them. And Jaden Springer, this might be, you know, one of the best things that could happen for a young player like Jaden Springer. And I'm really excited to watch him this upcoming season. G League MVP can't even get 5 minutes in a game under Doc under any point in the season. Bro, how crazy is that? How insane is that? This guy wouldn't put a player on the floor for 5 minutes against the Detroit Pistons on a Monday night in November. Like, I was so tired of watching it. He wouldn't put Isaiah Joe on the floor during the regular season in these literally meaningless games. At least 40 of them don't matter. And he got COVID one time, and Dan Burke played Isaiah Joe for 2 straight games and got an 18-point game out of him, an 11-point game out of him the next night. 28 points in 2 nights off the bench from Isaiah Joe under Dan Burke in 2 games. Doc Rivers came back and you never saw him again. I think Doc Rivers may have affected this roster more negatively than anybody really, really understands. I really do. 2 G League MVPs, Jaden Springer and Paul Reed, you know? But I do think that, you could have a good roster of role players like those guys and like Jalen McDaniels, and you still need to get to the championship level. You still need 2 stars, man. Do you need 2 stars? I guess the Miami Heat don't have 2 stars. The Miami Heat just have players playing out of their damn minds. Caleb Martin looks like Michael Jordan in his prime. Gabe Vincent is an absolute bucket. Max Strus, these guys are undrafted. So maybe you don't. Maybe that super team era is actually over. Maybe that we need multiple max contract superstars to win is over. You got 2 teams in the NBA Finals that don't have multiple max contract superstars. They have one superstar, a winning philosophy, and a lot of high-level NBA players that fit into a well-oiled machine that got them to the NBA Finals. So maybe we're finally over it. Maybe it started back in 2008, really, with the Boston Celtics and Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Rajon Rondo, and they beat LeBron James in 2008. And LeBron said, I can't beat the Celtics here. I'm going to have to go to Miami and build a better team to beat the Celtics. And he went to Miami, built a super team to beat the Celtics super team. And he went back to Cleveland. Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, super team. Warriors, super team. So we're in an era now where it seems like there's parity in the NBA. And it seems like there's balance. And it seems like we are back to maybe where the game was in the 80s. Before Jordan. Well, I guess the Magic Johnson, Kareem, those were super teams. The 83 Sixers was a super team. Dr. J, Moses Malone, Maurice Cheeks, Andrew Toney. But if we're talking, SY says Heat said Nuggets are a super team. I mean, it depends what you define a super team as. I'm calling a super team a team with multiple max contract superstars. So that's just flat out not the case. If Harden leaves, can't we sign another player for the same money? Yeah. Absolutely you can. That's free money. He's an unrestricted free agent. But Tyrese Maxey's going to be coming up on an extension. There's only room for 3 max contracts on an NBA roster. Step number 1 should be getting Tobias Harris out of here. Because Tobias Harris taking up a max contract it's crazy. That's crazy when you really think about it. Tobias Harris on a max contract. I know people want Kyrie Irving. I do not have any interest in Kyrie Irving. I think maybe Maxey. Look at the numbers. Look at Maxey's numbers. Without certain players on the floor, man. And Romp posted the best one. Romp posted the one that was like, hold on, let me see if I can find it. He posted one on Twitter that was like, it was Maxey when getting 20 plus field goal attempts or something like that. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Here's a good one from Romp. Shout out to my dude. Romp 2.0. Official Romp on Twitter. Tyrese Maxey had 15 games above 26% usage percentage. He averaged 23.8 points per game, a plus 66 and a 9-6 record. The only time with Embiid, Harden while starting that Tyrese Maxey had a 26% usage rating, he had 29 points, 2 assists. 6 games with Embiid and Harden, but off the bench, he had a 26% usage rating. So maybe under D'Antoni, under D'Antoni, bro. Now D'Antoni's on my mind because I was yelling about Harden in Houston. Maybe under Nick Nurse, Tyrese Maxey is finally used in an offense as a major weapon, as a major offensive weapon, as a major part of the philosophy. And maybe I was trying to move this thing real quick here. Fit that on the screen for you. Kastner, thanks for the super chat. I forget what I was saying. Anyway, Kastner, Embiid literally had to drop 30 against the Pistons in 3 quarters to get Springer on the court for 2 minutes. It was crazy, man. It was crazy. But yeah, maybe, Tyrese Maxey's finally a major part of the offense. Here's what I was going to say. When we were talking about getting another max contract star, if Harden walks, maybe Tyrese Maxey's already a 24, 25 point per game shooting guard, with the right usage and philosophy and plays and just design and, having an offense that's makes him a part of it. Maybe you just go get traditional facilitating point guard who can shoot a 3-pointer. Because that's what we keep saying about James Harden. Oh, we don't need him to be a star. We just need him to be the facilitator that he is and shoot from the perimeter. Well, I got news for you, bro. That's Malcolm Brogdon. You know what I mean? You don't have to pay a guy a max contract to find that. That's a facilitating point guard who can make a 3-pointer. You don't need it to be James Harden. If all you need is a facilitator that can shoot 40% from 3, you can find them a lot of places. That's where I'm at with that. Mike Conley, exactly. Good example. Who gets him the ball, though, without Harden? A point guard, another point guard. Another point guard that passes him the ball. That's, people do this a lot. They do this. They say, people say this a lot. This is my favorite. And the Heat Team of Destiny 2023, I'm not talking about your comment here when I say this, but people do this a lot. If I say, we got to trade Tobias Harris, people say this. Well, who's going to play power forward then? If we trade him, who's going to play the 4? Like you're just going to go into next season with 4 players and play 4-on-5. Bro, you're going to go into the offseason. You're going to look at available players. You're going to go into free agency. You're going to go into the buyout market. You're going to spend an entire summer finding someone that you think fits better. That's it. It just doesn't. If we trade him, who's going to play in his spot? If we let Harden walk, who's going to pass the ball? I don't know. They're going to try to figure that out throughout the summer. That's what the offseason is for. Anyway, yeah, that's all I got, man. Sixers hire Nick Nurse. These are my initial reactions and talking points and ideas and things like that. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with me today. 389 people in here. Hit the like button, please. That will be greatly appreciated. We're continuing Lunchtime Live every day of the offseason, 12 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday nights at 9 p.m. We're collaborating with another creator. We were hanging out with Brad Doe, Houston Rockets content creator, last week, talking about James Harden. We'll see who we have this Thursday. And Fridays at 9, or should we do 7 on Fridays? Should we do 7 on Fridays? We did the, what did I call it, man? Depressed 76ers Hotline call-in show on Friday. So that's the schedule for the offseason. Lunchtime Live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday night collaboration. Friday night call-in show. All the way up until the Sixers season starts again. If Harden walks, you cannot fill his slot with the same money. The Sixers are over the cap. You would have to do a sign and trade. I'm not a cap professional, but how does that work? You know, if James was getting paid $33 million a year, and he walks in unrestricted free agency, how does that not give you cap space? I'm ignorant on the topic. I really am. We would only get $8 million out of, okay, so we're over the cap. So Harden walking would give you $8 million in cap space. Okay, that makes, I understand that. So you wouldn't be able to sign a max. So basically, as Tyrese Maxey said right here, you're kind of going to have to, if Harden walks, you kind of have to look at Maxey as a number 2 scorer at the shooting guard position and probably use that $8 million or whatever other, maybe Tobias Harris trade gives you something in return. Maybe it gives you picks that you can flip for something else. I don't know. Nobody's giving picks for Tobias Harris. We would have to give picks for Tobias. I don't know. But I'm happy that Nick Nurse was hired. I'm going to the gym. You guys should too. It'll make you feel good. Hit the like button. I'm out of here.